The Lord be with you. And with your spirit. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Glory to you, Lord. Jesus said to the Pharisees, "There was a rich man who dressed in purple garments and fine linen and dined sumptuously each day. And lying at his door was a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who would gladly have eaten his fill of the scraps that fell from the rich man's table. Dogs even used to come and lick his sores. When the poor man died, he was carried away by angels to the bosom of Abraham. The rich man also died and was buried, and from the netherworld, where he was in torment, he raised his eyes and saw Abraham far off and Lazarus at his side. And he cried out, 'Father Abraham, have pity on me. Send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am suffering torment in these flames.' Abraham replied, 'My child, remember that you received what was good during your lifetime, while Lazarus likewise received what was bad. But now he is comforted here, whereas you are tormented. Moreover, between us and you, a great chasm is established to prevent anyone from crossing who might wish to go from our side to yours or from your side to ours.' He said, 'Then I beg you, Father, send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, so that he may warn them, lest they too come to this place of torment.' But Abraham replied, 'They have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them.' He said, 'Oh no, Father Abraham, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent.' Then Abraham said, 'If they will not listen to Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded if someone should rise from the dead.'" The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. There was once a father who every night would, of course, tuck his young son into bed, and every night the young son would say his prayers before he'd fall asleep. And one night they were performing their ritual, and the young son began to pray, and he said, "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should wake before I die," "Oh, sorry, Daddy, I got that backwards." And the father in his wisdom said, "Oh, no, my son. It would be one of my greatest hopes for you would be that you would be awake before you die." Tragically, I think there are a lot of people who spend most of their life asleep and not awake. They make their way through their days, their weeks, their months, their years, often very unaware of so much going on around them. And if they ever do realize what's happening, it's often in a moment of crisis and a moment of shock and a moment when it comes almost too late. As an example of that, we have Amos the prophet today. The moral issue that Amos is going on about is not sinful behavior. You want to hear Amos go on about sinful behavior? Look at last week's first reading. There he's going on about sinful behavior. This week, the moral issue is this: complacency. Woe to you, complacent. To people who are very rich and very self-satisfied and very comfortable, and whom have apparently lost a sense of the rest of everything going on around them in their world. I mean, Amos almost outlines for us what the Dolce Vita in 8th century BC Samaria would be like. Imported seats, large sofas to recline upon as you eat your meals of tender meats from lambs who had not yet produced wool, or calves that hadn't even reached the age to produce milk. Bowls of wine. They're able to have leisurely jam sessions on their harps as time permits, and lots of rich perfumes. And none of that, in and of itself, is sinful. None of that, in and of itself, is necessarily wrong. The problem that Amos points out is they have in their luxury become numb to the direction their country is heading in, to the disaster that's about to befall them because of their selfishness and their selfish decisions. They have missed the bigger picture because they're so concerned about themselves. They're asleep to what's going on. They're not awake to it. It's not that they did anything wrong necessarily. They just let their lives and what they were doing keep them from being aware of greater issues and other people. The parable that Jesus gives us today of the rich man and Lazarus is essentially the wrong thing. I don't think you could say the rich man did anything wrong. He didn't commit any crimes, but he wasn't innocent either. Somehow, in the midst of all his luxury and his sumptuous dining and his purple robes and so on and so forth, he was not awake. He was asleep to the guy right there in front of him every day who could have used his help. And that's a problem. That's an issue. I don't think this parable is so much one that gives us a punchline or a moral to live by as it is a cautionary tale. And what does it caution against? It cautions against getting so involved with ourselves that we become oblivious to what's really important. Other people. Other people. There's one feature in this parable which, ever since I was a kid, I found interesting. It always grabbed my attention, and I wasn't sure why. And this week in my research, I discovered there's a word in this parable that is used nowhere else in the New Testament, and maybe one place in the Old Testament. And that's the word chasm. There's a great chasm between Lazarus and the rich man and Lazarus. And what is that? What is that great chasm that exists? I mean, is it just a literary device that Jesus used to move the story forward? Of course not. It has meaning, it has purpose. And I think the chasm is literally the rich man's inability to respond to the need of the poor man. His inability. I think the chasm is something that he formed himself throughout his life. He dug it, he carved it by his lack of response to another in need. I mean, he had the Word of God. He had Moses and the prophets, which I'm sure he heard. He just never heeded. And in the long run, it made it impossible for him to get to Lazarus. And certainly Lazarus, who had tried to be present to him all his life, could no longer have access to him. A chasm had formed. Here's how I think this works. And I'm just going to share it from my own life and my personal experience of going grocery shopping at Safeway. Every time I go to shop at Safeway, there's an individual, a man or a woman, or a family looking for help, looking for a handout. And if I go past them without even acknowledging them, I'm not talking about giving them money or even giving them food, but even just like waving at them or saying hello to them, acknowledging them as human beings, a distance forms between me and them. And over time, it becomes easier and easier and easier to ignore them, to not even see them there, to step over them even though they're right at the gate. I'm too busy figuring out what I'm going to dine on. I'm on my task. I'm on my errand. No time. I'm asleep. I'm blind to what's right there. Whereas, if I take a moment, and even driving by my car and wave and they wave back, that happened this week, or give them a gift certificate to Safeway, or buy them a sandwich, that gap closes. Suddenly they become human to me. They're real to me. We have a conversation. They're grateful. It's a wonderful moment. And that chasm disappears. I think we create those chasms in our own life that, in essence, make our heart hard. And the less we respond to people in need, the easier it becomes not to respond to people in need. And I don't think we have to wait until eternity to see chasms or find people who are chasm makers. I mean, few weeks go by that we don't hear about someone whose marriage is in trouble or in a rocky state or slowly dying. Few weeks go by that we don't hear about someone else's children who are having a hard time, who are looking to maybe crash and burn if someone doesn't step in to help out. Few weeks go by that there aren't people around us, be it classmates or workmates or spouses or children or neighbors or strangers, who are silently crying out for help, be it physical, spiritual, mental, emotional. And the tragedy is, so much of that pain and so much of those chasms don't need to exist. If the chasm maker would just look up in the mirror and recognize my spouse, my children, my friends, my neighbors are hurting. I don't think chasm makers are intentionally cruel. I don't think they mean to maim or harm or hurt. I think they're just asleep. Just asleep. Like the rich people that Amos preaches about today, or the rich man in the parable. Chasm makers tend to be focused on themselves, their life, their business, their work, their pain, their suffering, their grievances, their cell phone, their agenda, their whatever. And it's almost understandable. I mean, it's very hard to put yourself aside for another person when your own life is a struggle, when your own life is painful, when you've got your own issues to deal with. But isn't that exactly what the gospel calls us to? Isn't that exactly what Christ did for us, that we're called to emulate? To put ourselves aside for the sake of another? I've shared with you before how half a lifetime ago I was on the national evangelization teams. And this little example, I think, goes to what I'm speaking about. It was a team of 12 people. I was one of 12. And we spent 12 months traveling, doing youth ministry, doing high school retreats. And one of the things we set as a goal for ourselves, one of the things we were trained in, was to actually try to anticipate and meet the needs of the other members of the team before they would maybe even recognize they had them. And I cannot tell you the number of times that we would drive up to the host family's house and start to pile out of the van. And by the time I could get out of the van and around to the back of the trailer to get my luggage was gone. And in the house and on the bed in the room that I was staying in. It was taken care of for me. Or often, I was the member of the team who gave the talks. Imagine that, me in front of a crowd giving talks. And I can remember very clearly one day in Louisiana, in a very small room with all these high school students, where it was hot and humid and there was no air conditioning, giving a talk. And I got done, and sat down, almost sat down, when an arm reached around with a cup of water for me. There it was. It was a wonderful moment that someone had actually thought of me and anticipated what I would need. And you know what that enabled me to do? With 11 people looking out for me, it enabled me to put all my concerns about my life aside so I could look out for them. My luggage is in the back of the van? Whose is? I'll take theirs. Suddenly, I was free to serve more. And I think that's a little bit of what heaven's going to be like. We put ourselves aside to care for others. There's a contemporary Christian artist whose name is Brandon Heath. And he has a song that the very first time I heard it, and ever since, it haunts me with its challenge. In the song, Brandon wonders about the people that he passes by in his life. And in the refrain, he prays, Give me your eyes for just 1 second. Give me your eyes so I can see everything that I've been missing. Give me your love for humanity. Give me your heart for the brokenhearted, the ones that are far beyond my reach. Give me your eyes for just 1 second. If we woke up and for just 1 second saw as Jesus saw, what might there be that's right in front of you that you have been missing? I don't think the readings today are supposed to make us feel guilty for having wealth, or guilty for being busy, or guilty for having lives. I think they're meant to actually empower us and free us from so many of the things we spend our time with that really have no eternal value, that in the light of eternity don't hold a whole lot of water. To free us so that we can wake up and maybe just for 1 second have the eyes of Christ.